The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The season, the 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great.
Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
You know, it really doesn't make any sense why I would want Joe Burrow to be the Browns quarterback. That would just be crazy.
No, that would be crazy.
It's like wanting Jamar Chase to be the Browns wide receiver. That would make no sense. Like, he's on our team. Why would I want to get rid of our quarterback and wide receiver? That intro makes no sense now.
We're going to have to redo the whole thing.
The whole thing.
Because I guess the 2024 season still is over.
Correct.
So that's fine.
Yeah.
And the 2025 season's still on as well, so.
Technically.
So we either redo the intro or just end the show.
One of the two.
Right.
One of the two. Only two options.
Both could be on the table.
This show has never ran with an outdated intro before, has it? No.
Certainly not. I wonder who's in charge of that.
Speak of the devil.
Couldn't be me.
Casey, good morning. How are we? Welcome
Good
to Off
morning.
the Bench.
Yeah. I think it's time to maybe to update that intro a little bit. I might have to get back in the lab and see what I can cook up.
Get Kinner to give you 60 pure seconds of Bengals love and admiration.
Maybe if I just sing the
Yeah, Kinner singing the song would be a great intro.
Who Day. Yeah, like just every single day. I can get AI to take my voice and like have me sing.
What would Allen Iverson do with your voice?
What? Allen Iverson? I see what you did there. But we welcome you guys in. I got a fun show today. The Reds have won 5 straight. I felt naked yesterday. We didn't talk Reds at all.
No.
No Reds at all.
None.
So now we have to make up for that
That's
here
right.
today. But we still have a lot of Bengals talk to get into. Charlie Goldsmith, friend of the show, is going to hang out with us coming up about an hour. From now, we'll talk Reds with him. We'll talk Bengals with him as we, again, we're getting further and further from the draft, and that's settling in a little bit, and a lot of people getting their opinions out there. We'll get Charlie's take on what the Bengals did this past weekend in the draft, and we'll talk about the Reds, who have won 5 straight, obviously, and they've won 5 straight. We've talked a lot about the new acquisitions of the offseason, how underwhelming the offseason was for the Reds, but honestly, probably one of the best off seasons they've had in quite some time because they're sitting comfortably right now. Obviously, you'd like to see them in first, but we'll get to more of that coming up. But I love what I'm seeing from a lot of the new additions, and that's without some of the mainstays of this roster really getting going yet. So we'll talk about that coming up here shortly. I know we got headlines that we'll open up in a moment. But Casey, outside of us blitzing you about the intro of the show, everything going good? You have a good night? Have a good Monday?
Yeah, I had a pretty good Monday. Finally putting away all the baby clothes, getting the bag ready for when the due date comes around, because we're getting to that point where it could happen now at any time.
We're in the home stretch.
We're in the home stretch, so we did some prepping for that. And I missed Monday Night Raw, and this morning I had to go back and watch the recap, and everything I said about Jey Uso, I mean, just double, triple the amount of just hatred I have for the dude. How dare you? How dare you kick Logan Paul like that? I mean, come on. It was a simple challenge, and you're just a weak punk, and I just cannot wait for Logan to finally get a chance to go after a championship against you. I mean, I'm going to savor it. I'm going to savor him just absolutely demolishing you. And then the Dallas Stars, they beat up on my Colorado Avalanche. That was disappointing. I mean, I just had a really tough night, honestly, in the sports world. I mean, none of my teams, none of my athletes did themselves any favors last night.
Now, for you to say I missed Monday Night Raw, that puts a heavy implication that you usually watch Monday Night Raw.
I mean, recently, yeah. I think more recently I have been.
There we go.
But,
have you watched more Monday Night Raws in 2025 or Colorado Avalanche games?
Ooh, probably more Monday Night Raws. Probably more Monday Night Raws. Unfortunately, I don't even really know where to go watch NHL. To be
They don't have
honest
some
with
sweet
you.
Netflix deal like WWE?
Yeah, I mean, I've got Netflix, so I know where to go watch Monday Night Raw.
It's the playoffs.
I know.
ESPN.
TNT.
When you fan, you fan hard.
Yeah.
Television.
When he fans hard, dude. Like that.
Oh man.
And technically, he missed Raw.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
he
missed.
missed both.
I mean,
Yeah, he sure did.
I had to other priorities. I had to get the
That's
baby
right.
bag ready to
That's
go.
right.
Fair enough. Now, I do think every Tuesday, I think we're going to open up the show with a Raw recap
Yeah, from
Oh,
Casey.
for sure.
with Casey McAllister.
Absolutely.
Clip it.
I would be
Casey
all for it.
McAllister, Raw, every Tuesday morning.
There's good evidence that I like Raw.
Man, it's 10
Can we check in on your other fandom? The Fighting FC Cincinnati Lions,
That's
the Mighty
right.
Lions.
Yeah, what do you want to know about them?
Griffins.
What did they do in their last game?
They won.
Okay, all right.
They won.
I was just making so not it's not all bad.
Yeah, it's not all bad.
You got FCC. They won like 100 in a row.
Yeah, I think they're second on the table now. I think Miami losing the other night actually put them above.
No, I think they're first.
They're first
Oh.
now.
I think they're first in the Eastern Conference.
And one thing
How
we know
about
about
that?
that table
You know-
is you want to be at the top of it.
That's
You do want to be on the top of the table, and what I'll say is FC. They do this. It feels like every year where they just are on top of the world by the midway point of their season, and then things start to fall apart. So we'll see. We'll see if this can be some like continued success down the road. And,
There we go.
Maybe they can win the Supporter Shield again. That'd be nice. That'd be really cool. Win the league, and then maybe when we get to February, we could see the MLS Cup.
February.
Man, now that was all of Elliot's headlines. I mean, you just between Monday Night Raw and FC Cincinnati,
right.
I have no clue what's even left for Elliot's headlines, but we'll find out here shortly. I'm assuming you did not catch up on Monday Night Raw last night, Mr. Elliot. Elliot, how are we today? Happy Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm great. The sun is still shining. I think it's supposed to rain there tonight. So the sunshine streak will end tonight. But yeah, I'm good. I did not watch Monday Night Raw. I did watch, I think, the first 2 periods of that Stars game. I made a little bet on it. So I had some interest. Then I fell asleep because I lost that interest at some point. But yeah, it was good. I won the bet, and all is right in the world. So yeah, beautiful.
All right, Jacob. In the world of shorter hair, your world
world of
continues.
shorter hair.
How's
That's
it going?
right. I guess technically it's probably a little longer than right when I got it cut. But yeah, no, short hair world's nice. The sun on the back of my neck, still getting used to it, but it's all good. I went and saw Sinners last night.
Did you?
Unbelievable.
How good is it?
Unbelievable.
It's one of my favorite movies I've ever seen.
One of the better original movies we've gotten in
yeah.
a long time. I mean, an unbelievable film. If you're not doing anything over the next couple weeks, go check it out.
All right, good stuff. So we got headlines coming up around the corner. We'll dive into the Cincinnati Reds as they have won 5 straight. Charlie Goldsmith, friend of the show, he's going to hang out with us. We'll talk Bengals. We'll talk about the Bengals draft. We'll talk about the Cincinnati Reds. We got a loaded show for you here on a Tuesday. We'll step aside. We got Elliot's headlines when we come back. All right, and we are back off the bench here on a Tuesday. Justin Kenner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett. I apologize this far into the show, and I have not dropped a Who Day yet.
Who
That's right.
Day to all my
Day.
Bengals fans out there.
Yeah.
It's a great day to be a Bengals fan.
It is. Welcome
number-
into
day
the
number 2.
circle, man. It's the inner circle, the circle of trust, and that's what you're in now.
It's been a couple mean ones on social media, but overall the fans have been nice.
Yeah.
I've been greeted with.
You're not allowed to turn your back on it. You're not now. If you turn your back on our fandom, then you're dead to us.
Now, if we sense at any point that this is a joke or sarcasm, we're going to be very upset.
I'm gonna be very upset.
Very upset.
That's true. I'm about as real of a Bengals fan as my guy Elliot is.
You know, he bleeds scarlet and gray.
No, I'm legit.
If I cut your arm open right now, what's coming out?
Blood.
Valid.
I mean,
Very
fair.
valid.
Yeah, no, true.
Yeah.
A little peanut butter chocolate
Yeah,
combination.
probably.
Some Buckeyes.
Yeah, like Pringles.
Oh, I was saying Buckeyes. That wasn't. Come on, man.
I was curious if you would bleed the scarlet and gray. That's all. But nonetheless, yes, Buckeye fan Elliot, Bengals fan Kinner, and then of course the Bengals fans that make up the rest of the room, and Jacob and Casey. So yeah, a lot of Bengals fans here. Hey, we'll get into the Bengals more coming up in a moment. We do have Reds talk here shortly as well. But before we do that, let's set up our guy Elliot for Elliot's headlines, ladies and gentlemen. Elliot's headlines.
Score updates, breaking news, local and national headlines. Whatever's going on in the world of sports, Elliot has you covered. Off the Bench brings you Elliot's headlines.
That's right. That's right, Magic
My brain
Voice.
makes so much contact with my skull during that intro, just for the jostling that we do. It's concussions every day.
Jostling. Love it.
Headlines. The Reds, they win 3-1. Should be 3-0, but because the MLB wants, Major League Baseball wants games to start at 6:40, we got left fielders who can't see the ball in the sunlight. So, 3-1 the final score. Martinez had his best game of the season, arguably 6 innings, 5 hits, 1 earned run, striking out 3. Ashcraft, Santiago, and Pagan all perfect after Martinez. Pagan getting his 8th save of the season. Already his 8th save of the season. Gavin Lux, he went 3 for 4 with 2 doubles and RBI. He is now the league leader in batting average this season. Unbelievable turnaround for Gavin Lux. I saw somebody tweet at me last night. Elliot and the Chatterbox crew didn't think Gavin Lux was very good. Not what we said. I said that it wasn't going to be enough. I could be wrong, but, who knows? We still got a long season to go.
I think we explicitly said Gavin Lux is a great addition for a team like the Dodgers
Correct.
and Yankees.
Correct. Now, rolling on here, up next is, and also Jose Trevino hit another home run.
Well, and speaking of league leaders, I don't want to, leave anyone out. Jamer Candelaria. He's last in the league in average on-base percentage and just barely second to last in slugging. So almost the Triple Crown.
And he's played about 3 games in, the last 10? So
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Keep it rolling.
Not to
Keep it
mention
rolling.
the 30 strikeouts and 80 at-bats.
Ooh, that's not good.
Barracuda.
The Candyman can't, sorry.
So he had a great candy tracker.
Did you like that?
On Twitter. It looked
Did you like
beautiful. Great drawing by, I believe, one of your dear friends. So great stuff. I'm going to expect that updated pretty regularly.
Yeah, I would like that to be updated until the contract ends. We'll see when that is. Hopefully it's sooner than
Hopefully he
later.
gets to rest, though, because, after a DFA, those numbers will stay the same for a year.
Correct. Let's see. Up next, 4-0 Brady Singer tonight versus 0-2 Miles Mikolas. He has a 5.7. Michaelis. It might be Michaelis.
Is he your favorite pitcher in the NL Central? I just feel like you love saying
I
Miles
do like.
Mikolas.
Well, I don't like saying his name because I don't know how to say it. But
Right,
I
but
do
I mean-
think he's one of them. Outside of the Reds pitchers, he's probably my number one. He's a 5.7 ERA. Good luck. The Dodgers. They win 7-6 last night in 10 innings after blowing a 5-run lead against the Marlins. The Rockies, they led early, but again fell to the Atlanta Braves. 6-3 the final score. They have now lost 7 games in a row. They are 4-24 on the season. They also play in the toughest division in baseball, over under what the White Sox had last year for the Colorado Rockies this year.
Yeah, I think at some point we're going to have to start asking the question. I mean, maybe not yet. Maybe we give them a little bit more time before we bring it up. But, I mean, what are they, 4-24? Yeah, what was the White Sox winning percentage last year? It couldn't have been.
I don't know.
It couldn't have been 143.
They had to have been somewhat on this pace, or maybe a little bit better than this, because 4-24 is woeful.
Right.
Woeful. But you know what they say, Colorado is a tough place to play.
Maybe they can get a couple more home games. I mean, 3-10 at home, 1-14 on the road. Significant difference.
Maybe they need to focus on the road, because maybe it's too tough of a place to play for them.
We talk about the altitude when teams go to Colorado,
Yeah.
but we don't think about the 29 times that Colorado is out of the altitude.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, hopefully that, I don't know, maybe something will shake it up in the coming weeks. Who knows? Maybe Chris Bryant will help. Him and Kyle Farmer. The Astros.
And Nick Martini.
Yeah, and Nick Martini. The Astros, they win 8-5 over the Tigers. The Rangers, they lose to the Athletics 2-1. The Yankees, they almost came back from 4 down against the Orioles, but they lost 4-3. The Twins, they crushed the Guardians 11-1. And how about this one? The Mets, they obliterate the Nationals 19-5. Brandon Nimmo tied the Mets' single-game RBI mark with 9. He also had 2 home runs. How about that? Heading over to the Hockey League, as Casey mentioned, the Stars blew out the Avalanche 6-2 to take a 3-2 series lead. Wyatt Johnston's goal in the first 9 seconds is the fastest ever for the Stars in a playoff game.
Oh,
Didn't want to play any defense in the first 5 seconds?
No comment.
No
It's
comment.
the altitude. Tough place to
It
play.
is the altitude. And the Panthers, they lead the series 3-1 after a 4-2 win last night over the Lightning. Heading over to the association, the Warriors. The Warriors beat the Rockets 109-106 to take a 3-1 series lead. Jimmy Butler dropped 27 points to lead the Warriors. And the Cavaliers, they complete the most lopsided series sweep in the history of the NBA after beating the Heat by 55 points last night. 3 points shy of the largest deficit ever in the playoffs. 138-83, the final score. They won that series by a combined 122 points. Yikes.
Yeah,
Eric Spoelstra.
To lose by 50 after you lost by 39, and Tyler Hero said, we're not going out in 4. That's tough.
Yeah,
that's a
they
tough
went out
place to
4
be.
by
Now,
as many points as you could
that's
possibly fathom.
as anyone's ever done. But now I will say, Thunder sweep, Cavs sweep, Pacers up 3-1, Knicks up 3-1, Celtics up 3-1,
Sure.
Golden State up 3-1, Minnesota up 3-1. David Stern would have never let this happen.
No.
Adam Silver has turned the NBA into the National Blowout Association. David Stern would have his hands in these games meddling, moving refs around, forcing these series into more competitive matchups. We wouldn't have 3-1s across the board in the first round if David Stern was still commissioner. RIP to a legend.
No, but this is what you wanted for college basketball, though.
Yeah, I don't care about college basketball. I want to see good teams. I care about the NBA.
Okay.
The sad thing for the league, though, right now, is like you would get a lot of these during the regular season, and we've all just kind of got used to the fact that, okay, they don't try as hard in the regular season, but that usually got eliminated when you get to the postseason. The fact that you're starting to see these types of level of blowouts and just lack of effort defensively in the playoffs, that's where you should start to get a little – like, these are professional basketball players. You should not have blowouts by 50. This is not Kentucky against Horizon League school. This is not –
What is
you know
that,
what
the
I mean?
third 50-point game of the playoffs so far?
Am I wrong in saying that at professional level that's ridiculous? Like,
It
I don't
seems
think anyone
crazy.
should ever get blown out by 50.
You quit.
Yeah.
If you lose a game by 50, you quit.
If the discrepancy of these teams is 55 points in a playoff game, and by the way, the Heat
10
were,
seed.
were the whatever, the under
10 seed.
500 essentially. So like those teams very clearly shouldn't be allowed to compete in the tournament because they're not competitive. So I don't know why we're pretending like they are. They try to spice it up. They keep trying to do different things. But at the end of the day, if you're going up against the 1 seed and you lose a series combined by 130, there's something very, very wrong with your system. So I'm hoping they adjust that going forward because it's the only way.
If we're gonna
cut
have-
it down
yeah.
to 16. Cut it down to 16.
If we're going to have the 2 1 seeds, I mean, that's who we're talking about here. The Thunder and the Cavs both won these games by 50 points.
Correct.
Why don't we just give them buys?
Yeah.
I mean, that series is useless, and all you're asking for is players to get hurt.
I agree.
I know we can, have upsets and stuff in theory, but if it's going to be this bad, just give the 1 seeds buys.
That's right. That's right. Rolling on here, we have Shaquille O'Neal agreeing to be Sacramento State's general manager, their basketball program. His son, Shaquille O'Neal, will play for Sacramento State under their new head coach, Mike Bibby, after transferring out of Florida A&M in late March to join the Hornets. This will be an unpaid, voluntary role for Shaquille O'Neal, but they get to say Shaquille O'Neal's their general manager, so it's a win-win for everybody.
Sacramento State football also got a commitment from Jaden Rashada earlier this offseason, the number 6 quarterback in the 2023 class to play there. He played at Georgia before this year, started a few games at Arizona State 2 years ago. So really picking up the steam there. They hired UNLV's offensive coordinator, Brendan Marion, to be their head coach last year. Run and gun, really fun offensive coordinator from UNLV, had their offense in the top 15 the last 2 seasons. So Sacramento State, FCS program that, put in their bid to move up to Division I to get their hands on revenue sharing. We'll see what happens, but maybe we're going to see some of this. If teams are willing to put millions of dollars into NIL, maybe they can make that transition pretty quickly from FCS to FBS.
And we're seeing some teams who go the route of like a former alum, obviously Shaquille O'Neal is not an alum of that school, but I forgot his son's playing there because I was trying to figure out what the tie-in was. I didn't realize that Shakira was playing there. But if you're that school, though, at the same time, like you're not going to have that long-term GM commitment from Shaquille O'Neal. And what exactly is the GM doing, technically? We talked about Corey Evans, who left, the Thunder? Or he left the NBA to go take over the GM spot for the Bearcats. That's one of those where I think he's approaching that role to be a legitimate GM, to obviously find a sustainable, path here. Shaquille O'Neal, I think, is just there to be what? The money guy? Just,
Well,
be
I
the
think he's
figurehead?
there to be.
Hey, you want to meet with Shaquille
Yeah,
O'Neal today?
you like to play for Shaquille O'Neal?
Yeah.
Do you like Shaquille
Yeah.
O'Neal?
You want to go get breakfast with Shaquille O'Neal?
Yeah, it's the great. You want to watch a TV show or a movie with Shaquille O'Neal after practice?
Yeah, you want to get your haircut with Shaquille O'Neal?
Shaquille O'Neal?
Hey,
Yeah.
donate, yeah. I mean,
It's-
Davidson has, obviously, Steph Curry. We're seeing some of
Stanford
these-
just hired Andrew Luck as their
Yeah.
GM.
So, I mean, we're seeing that comment throughout, but, like, it just depends. I'm curious the difference in the GM roles. Like, Steph Curry's not approaching it the same as Corey Evans for UC, obviously. But again,
Max Crosby's Eastern Michigan's GM, and he's playing NFL football,
That's right.
so he can't. How is he going to GM during the season? I don't know how a lot of this stuff's going to work. I do think most of it's going to be, if you're Eastern Michigan, you have an alum like Max Crosby, he'll be at recruiting visits and stuff like that. I highly doubt that these guys are acting like the GMs, like, UC just hired and stuff like that. Exactly like you said. It's not the same, but I do think there's value to both roles. I think a GM in modern college sports is an absolute necessity, and I think, if you're a smaller school like a Sacramento State and you can get Shaquille O'Neal to help with those recruiting visits and get you players you'd otherwise not have the ability to have interactions with, then go for it.
Rolling on.
Yes, sorry.
Deontay Johnson has agreed with your former team, the Cleveland Browns, on a 1-year deal.
Good for that locker room.
Just a guy that clearly was loved last year and had no issues
By
on
all
the
four
field.
teams.
All 4 of them?
All 4 he was on.
So I'm
And
sure he'll
touchdowns.
fit in with the 7 quarterbacks the Browns have this year. But again, it's okay to make those jokes because
I'm a Bengals fan. Now, I can't imagine what it's like to be a Browns fan today. I just can't.
I couldn't either, to be quite
Yeah.
honest. It would be sad. George Kittle, he has agreed to a 4-year deal extension, with the San Francisco 49ers, $76.4 million. Is that the highest paid tight end in the league?
It
certainly?
is. It is. It is the highest paid tight end in the league, and I think it's important to note that he's one of the last true tight ends in the league. I mean, you talk about the best tight ends in football these days. It's, you get to Travis Kelce, you get to Sam Laporta, you get to T.J. Hawkinson. Those guys are, glorified receivers that block well enough to play them at tight end. George Kittle's the 6th offensive lineman. We've seen the Niners use him at tackle before. It's unbelievable how effective he is in the receiving game while also being such a good blocker. A unique breed. I'm a huge George Kittle guy.
Those are your headlines.
I don't know, Casey, we sent it in the chat. Did you see that we talked about the White Sox earlier. The White Sox are doing a Chicago Bulls themed City Connect uniform. What do you make of these? For those on radio, unfortunately, you can't see it. But for those who, of course, are watching live on the YouTube stream, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us. But when we pop that up there, take a look at this. Again, trying to tie in to another professional team in their city, of course. You got the Chicago Bulls-inspired City Connect uniforms. What do you make of these? What do you make of these?
For all the rabid White Sox fans that are still, packing out that stadium for Jerry Reinsdorf and booing him out of his owner's suite, he just wants to remind him that he owns a second team in their city.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, they won a World Series, and he told them to buy their season tickets for the Bulls, so why not keep it up?
Listen, if you're gonna listen, if you're a White Sox fan, you're a Bulls fan. So who knows? Who cares? Let them have some fun. I think the jerseys look cool for what it's worth.
Yeah.
I like their other jersey better. Their other
For
City
sure.
Connect. It was the black and white one. It said South Side on it. So I thought that looked better than these, but I still think these look great.
Alex
I think
Wallace
these
says
look
in the
very
chat,
cool.
once you do this, you're admitting that you're the lesser team.
Yeah,
They are.
Yeah, they are.
But they are. And I think they know that. And I think they're fine with that.
You don't think the Cubs would ever break out the Chicago, Bears? Maybe they'll go the Bears route.
No, I
What
don't
if
think so.
What if the Reds did a Bengals themed?
Speaking
It would
of
be-
Reds
it would be
Bengals
on-
themed,
Well, yeah, there we go. Go ahead.
there you go. Casey, we got it? Or do you need me to filibuster?
I think filibuster.
Jose Trevino, our favorite guy on this show. We've talked about him for a while. Can't send him down. Can't get rid of him because he's playing too well. Became even more of a fan favorite yesterday, wearing a Bengals striped catcher's helmet for the Reds. Very, very cool. Up to my knowledge, not something I've seen a Reds catcher do, and I think it's pretty cool. Makes sense. A logical step for a Cincinnati tie-in, and I love it. I think it's really fun.
I agree. I love that, and I think they should do more with that. You can do subtle nods to the other
For
team
sure.
in your city without completely
That's
going.
not black and orange.
Yeah, correct. like you don't have to wear Bengals jerseys to say it's cool to have two teams in your city, like the Chicago White Sox did, but who are just literally wearing a basketball jersey out there, which is fine. I think it looks good, but it's still they are one. Alex Wallace is 100% right. You're just saying that the Bulls are better.
Yep. unless they get like Michael Jordan out there to throw the first pitch and just, honor, but those are the city connectors. They're wearing those regularly throughout the season.
Yeah.
So
If they went current Bulls, right? I mean, obviously Jordan, Pippen, you have a good lineage there. But if you went current Bulls throwing out the first pitch, how many do you think would be a draw at all for fans to come see? I mean, they traded Zach LaVine. They traded everyone. They traded Vucevic.
Kobe White's still there.
Kobe
right?
White's still there.
Okay.
Maybe Giddey.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
he definitely would get some people.
is that it?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I mean, I can't name a whole lot of Bulls right now.
I mean, either Reed, big Bulls fan.
There you go. I don't know if you guys saw this as well. The defending champions, the Dodgers, are going to be hosting the Marlins this week. And it's a historic matchup because this right here says that this is the largest payroll gap in modern MLB history.
boy.
This is a matchup that features the largest payroll gap in modern MLB history. The Dodgers at $476 million, welcoming in the Marlins and a very nice number of $69 million dollars.
Just over a $400 million difference.
That's it?
Marlins taking 2 or 3 because that's how this works.
But we're all playing the same sport, right, Kenner?
Well, they lost last night, so bad start.
Back to back, close it out.
Well, they're not the Reds. They could win the
True.
series.
Close it out
after
right
in
now.
game one.
True.
So, there you go. All right, off the bench, Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliott Rearing, Jacob Tissett. The Reds, not only making headlines for the awesome, catcher's mask by Jose Trevino, they've also won 5 straight. The Reds are rolling. They're quite a few games over 500, and it looks like they're going to be able to keep that going, hopefully, knock on wood. Let's talk about that. How confident, how satisfied are you with the run that the Reds are on right now? Are you buying in yet, Elliott? That's what we're going to discuss when we come back. We're off the bench next. Three-one Marlins. Sorry, Marlins on the brain.
Marlins on the
big
brain.
Marlins fan here. I've been switching teams lately, so I'm just trying to it's hard to keep up with who my
What a
original teams are.
doozy that would be.
Boy,
If you're-
switching over to the Marlins.
Yeah. I know we're all Bengals fans here.
Yeah.
If you're gonna go fan free agency from the Browns, I mean, you should pick someone better.
Yeah.
Not the
I mean, don't do this.
What a bad open. All right, we welcome you back. A 3-1 Reds win over the Cardinals. They take game 1 against the Cardinals, of course, coming off that 3-game sweep over the Rockies. Of course, the Reds did take that final game against the Marlins. So you got that win against the Marlins to close out that series. You take 3 straight against the Rockies on the road. And then, of course, you take care of business last night in game 1 against the Cardinals. They have won 5 straight. And when you talk about the strengths of this team at the beginning, it was pitching. But when you start to look at how this team is winning ball games right now, they're kind of a complete team. And that's something that we don't really view this team as, is a complete team. When you look at they're one of the best offensive teams, at least statistically in baseball. I know sometimes you watch this team and you don't really get that vibe. Some of their offensive numbers have been propped up when you have those gigantic games like they had when they put 20-plus runs up, last week or week before, whenever that was. But the bottom line is the Reds are hitting the ball. They're putting runs up on the board. They're getting great, obviously, production out of their rotation. The bullpen's been solid. And you have Terry Francona leading the way. This is kind of what Reds fans are hoping when you added Terry Francona. Not that all of this is because of Terry Francona, but this team seems to be clicking on all cylinders right now. Overall, fairly healthy. I know we're still waiting to get Tyler Stevenson back, but Tyler Stevenson being out of the lineup to start the season seemed more urgent and severe back in late March, early April than it does right now because of all the contributions that the Reds are getting up and down this lineup right now. Elliott, how we feeling? This team has won 5 straight. Game 2 tonight, obviously, against the Cardinals, their first time matching up against this team this season. Continuing to create that gap between them and the Cardinals, though, in the NL Central. That's key. A big Game 2 coming up here tonight as they look to take the Cardinals series and extend this win streak. How are we feeling about this current run that the Reds are on right now as we sit here to close out the month of April?
Yeah, it's great that they've won, 5 in a row here. To get a little bit of momentum against these teams that they're playing now. We said we would like them to be, 5 to 6 games, 7 games above 500 during this 17-game stretch. You're playing teams that aren't very good. You're playing a lot of teams that you can take advantage of, because we know the Reds are better than that. I don't know how good the Reds are. I don't know what their ceiling is, but I know their floor is better than the teams that they're currently facing. The St. Louis Cardinals this season aren't a juggernaut. The Colorado Rockies are the worst team in baseball. They did drop the series of the Marlins, but they've made up for it. You just got to keep stacking these series wins and get hot. That's what this team is doing. And to be fair to them, the offense still looks solid. I thought that you'd see a little bit more regression after that 24-run performance against the Orioles. But I like what I'm seeing. I like what I'm seeing. I think they're really, really good right now. I'm not going to sit here and say that they're going to win the division. I'm not going to say they're a playoff team. I'm not going to get in all of that. But you can't ask for much more. I mean, they're in the playoffs as we currently sit. They're above 500 as we currently sit, and they're beating the bad teams that I asked them to beat. They can't do much more. The pitching staff has been incredible, absolutely incredible. And I'm just hoping they can keep it rolling. Take two more from the Cardinals. It's a 4-game series. Take 2 more. Take 2 against the Nationals. And then after that, we can reevaluate when they play a Braves team, who I imagine will be a little bit better than they're playing right now. But yeah, I'm happy that the Cincinnati Reds are playing like this. You can't when we look back at the end of last year and we saw the month of May that took us apart. This month should give us a little bit of a buffer.
Yeah.
Because the schedule will get hard. We're playing the easy part of our schedule early, which I think is good for momentum. But it also gives you the buffer window in case things start to unravel a little bit once you start playing, the Dodgers and who else in the National League, the Dodgers and the Mets and the Phillies and everything like that. So, yeah, I couldn't be more pleased.
We threw the Braves kind of in this mix when we started talking about this list of games. And obviously now as the weeks have progressed, something that we all kind of saw coming, the Braves are 2 games away from 500. And obviously with a couple series to go until we play them, they could very easily be above that mark by the time we get down to Atlanta. So focusing, on the rest of this St. Louis series and that Nationals series, if you're able to, put that Marlins series in your rearview mirror, because obviously, getting the loss in Miami is a tough pill to swallow. They're one of the worst teams in baseball, certainly over the last few years, and to lose that series is tough. But to turn around and sweep the Rockies in Colorado, which, tough place to play, and then game 1, 3-1 against the Cardinals, that's a really good start. Now, the thing is, you can't rest on your laurels here with 5 wins in a row. Yep. I know it feels good, and the Reds team is probably playing the best they've played all year long, but you have to win this Cardinals series. You can't, win game 1 and then turn around and lose 3 in a row, which is something we've seen this team do plenty. So they have to focus on winning this Cardinals series, turn around, win that Nationals series, give yourself that buffer before you get into these tougher games. And then after Atlanta and Houston, you still have Chicago, and then you go to Cleveland, which is tough, and then, Pittsburgh. That schedule gets a lot tougher there at the beginning of June. So getting these wins now is crucial. Losing that Marlins series, I thought, put an end to that record that we desired. And then, they've turned around and ripped off 5 straight, so they're back in the mix there. You're going to have to keep stacking wins to get to that point. So hopefully they are, and we can get to, 8 or 9 wins in the stretch before it's all said and done.
Standings-wise, the Cubs are 17-12. They have a 1-game lead over the Cincinnati Reds as of right now. The Milwaukee Brewers 14-15. They're 3 games back. And the Cardinals 12-17 on the year, 5 games back. And thank you to the Pirates, who always show up.
Reds do hold the 3rd wildcard spot right now. And I think a conversation that we had a little bit yesterday is, what's your level of confidence that wildcard spot is even on the table for a team like the Reds? And I just don't feel like that level of confidence should be very high when you look at all the other teams competing for the wild card in the National League. I think the Reds' chance to make this division or make this playoffs is to win the National League Central, and we've said that for a while. And obviously, that's every team's best chance is to win their division. But the Reds specifically, the National League Central specifically, I think they're only going to get one team in this playoffs, and it's going to be the division champion. So to be only a game and a half back of the Cubs, I know we've played the easy part of our schedule, and they've played the hard part of theirs. But to still, they're all professional teams, and we're sitting here 30 games into the season or so, and we're on par, or at least within striking distance of the Chicago Cubs, which I think is something we're going to be talking about all throughout the summer, is how close we are to them.
So the Reds, as we sit here, April 29th, are 16-13. And I went back. I was like, well, what were the Reds at this point last year? Well, they were exactly on April 29th, 2024, 16-13. And knock on wood that this doesn't happen, when the Reds were 16-13, and we feel pretty good about the 16-13 mark right now.
Yeah.
This is the exact stretch a year ago, 16-13, where they would go on to lose 11 of their next 12, and that was really the big turnaround. Because I remember we were talking about how bad this team felt at times, but they would go on. They had a losing May, but they had a winning April, they had a winning June, and a winning July. But because they shot themselves in the foot with losing 11-12 during this same stretch last year from this point on, they really dug themselves in a hole that was very hard for them to dig out of. They weren't a consistent enough team. They weren't a consistent enough pitching team, good enough hitting team to be able to rally any kind of significant run to kind of trump what they did when they dropped 11-12. The bottom line is it just feels different this year for some reason. I think obviously because of some of the things I mentioned, I think that the pitching is drastically better. Maybe those numbers are inflated because they haven't gone up against the best hitting teams in baseball. But I tell you what, it's a lot better than going up against some of the worst hitting teams in baseball and still having a middle of the pack pitching staff.
Yeah.
Clearly, good pitching is not allowing bad hitting to even breathe any kind of fresh air at this point. So I give the Reds credit. The one thing I would, especially after losing the Marlins, I was really down at that point. I'm like, we keep talking about this easy stretch for the Reds where they're looking down at their opponents moving forward. But the bottom line is the Reds are one of those opponents moving forward. They're one of them. To their credit, they're making those weaker opponents look weaker. And that's something that in the past has been their Achilles heel. They're beating the teams that they should at this point. I like this little 5-game win streak. Obviously, it means nothing if they drop this series to the Cardinals and lose the next 2. Beating NL Central opponents is very important. The other thing, they have to get as many wins in this stretch as possible because the Cubs' schedule has actually been fairly difficult, and they're rolling, sitting at the top right now.
I think the hardest schedule in baseball, correct?
One of them, certainly.
Yeah, and they're about to embark on one of the easier schedules in baseball for the month of May. They have I saw the strength of schedule for the Cubs is one of the easiest in the month of May. I know you don't make the playoffs in April, you don't make it in May, but at the same time, I think pacing matters. You brought up the wild card. I'm not confident that the Reds are going to be a 90 to 100 win team, and I think that whoever gets those final wild card spots will be a 90 to 100 win team, and maybe I'm wrong on the Reds. I just don't see them being a 90 to 100 win team at this point. So that's the concern I have. I see the Giants. I see the Diamondbacks. I see one of those teams out of the West really holding on. The Phillies are still pretty good. There's teams that are heating up over there. I like the Reds, but at the same time, I think it has to come down to winning the division. I think keeping pace with the Cubs at this point is very, very important. That's why I think this stretch is so wildly important. Take advantage of this weak part of the schedule. Come out with a nice little cushion, because the Cubs could potentially go on a massive run here, and technically they've been pretty damn solid to start the season as it is.
And it's exactly what we said at the start of the season, opening day in those early few games where it was frustrating when the Reds seemingly let wins slip through their fingers. You can't do that when you're the Reds because you have to win every game you should win this year. And some games on your schedule, whether we like it or not, are deemed games you should win before they even start. And that's been a lot of the games in this stretch. And the fact that the Reds are taking advantage of it is something they're going to have to continue to do, because if we're going to rely on upsets here and there to certainly have a chance to make the playoffs this year, but this team doesn't have a shot if they don't continue to take care of the teams that they should take care of. I don't know how many teams in this league are unequivocally worse than the Reds in a given series, and when you play those few teams, you have to win those series. You cannot let those slip through your fingers, and that's why it's so important what the Reds are doing right now. I've seen people, try to downplay it, and I've certainly fallen victim to that at some point, saying, the schedule is this and whatever. We've seen Reds teams over the last, decade or even less time drop these games plenty of times. Yeah. So the fact that, the Reds are able to win 5 games in a row here, just 7 more to go till 12 in a row, and we know what happens after that. We still miss the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's downplaying it, but it is it's a fact that when you play the 4-24 Rockies and you sweep them and you take on an Orioles staff, pitching staff who's one of the worst in Major League Baseball, and then you play the Marlins and the Cardinals. Like, these aren't great teams. We all know this. And the whole point is, as long as you take care of business, you can't take away anything from it because you're doing your job. Last season the Reds did not do their job against teams like this. I talk about that stretch right before the All-Star break because it still leaves me up at night. It still wakes me up at night. They had a chance to really get some momentum and maybe have a fight in the back half of that season last year, and they didn't do it. Whether that was David Bell, whether that was the players in the field, who knows what it was. But they were unable to do it. Right now they're doing it. Obviously you can't start dropping games, but as of right now, you're 5-2 in a stretch where I think Jacob and I said you got to be like 11-6 or 10-7, whatever that is. So I think they're off to a really, really good start right now. They look good. They look confident. The at-bats look a lot better, especially with Jeimer Candelario out of the lineup. And hopefully the Spencer Steer thing will get fixed and resolved at some point during the year. Because as of right now, he is the weight in the lineup. Matt McClain, I know, is not playing well, but I do believe Matt McClain is going to be able to come back from whatever this is right now. You have Will Benson down in AAA. You can bring Will Benson up, and you send Spencer Steer down. That's what I would do immediately. Tyler Stevenson's on pace to return relatively soon. He hasn't been playing great down in the minors. But again, I think that he's going to be fine when he comes back up. With the guys that we have right now, though, I mean, it's fun to watch. And that's what I wanted this season to be. If they weren't going to make the playoffs, I wanted the baseball, I wanted the brand of baseball that the Cincinnati Reds played. I wanted it to be fun to watch. And right now they are that.
Yesterday especially I know it's a 3-1 game and it's not as fun as 25-2 or whatever that one was, but that looked like a legitimate baseball team. And I don't know that sounds like an empty thing to say, but when you're playing the Orioles and you're scoring 24 runs, I mean, it feels like, wiffle ball. Or, everyone has great numbers and, 7 hits down the lineup. And that's fun. That's great. But for yesterday to go out and Nick Martinez to pitch his first great start of the year, to allow 1 run with solid defense and good plays in the field, to manufacture, runs, and Jose Trevino, who's not a power bat, to hit a home run. Like, this is stuff that good teams do to win games. And to win a game 3-1 where we never really even had a chance to, hold our breath or gasp or had really a worry. The confidence that I have as a guy that's been downplaying the back end of this bullpen for most of this year so far is growing every single day. And Emilio Pagan and the rest of the relievers that we keep walking out there, at some point they are just good. And the name on their back of the jersey can't matter anymore if they're going to be an elite pitcher out of the bullpen in their given role. So I absolutely love what this Reds team's been able to do. And I think that yesterday especially was a really, really good game for the trajectory of this team.
Yeah, I like to find, it's the fact that they're finding ways to win in different kinds of games. You put 7-8 runs up on the board, the probability of you winning is going to be pretty high, especially with this rotation. But you put 3 runs up on the board yesterday, and it was a grinded-out type of win that you had to get a solid outing from your starter, Nick Martinez, which that was his best start of the season, and that's good to see. You want to see that progression as the season's going on, which is good because there's not a lot of options for this rotation right now. The rotation is very, very good, but it's a very banged-up pitching staff down in the minors right now. Charlie Goldsmith, who's going to join us coming up, he put out a graphic yesterday that obviously have Hunter Greene, Nick Lodolo, Nick Martinez, Brady Singer, Andrew Abbott for the Reds rotation right now. If any of them goes down, who do you call up? Well, you just go over to Louisville. Well, we'll just bring up a Rhett Lauder or a Wade Miley or a Carson Spires. They're all on the IL right now. All 5 of the starting pitchers for the Louisville Bats are on the IL. Even Wade Miley, who was doing a rehab start in Dayton, I think, 10 pitches and then had to be pulled the other day.
Yeah, groin.
I'm really curious to see what is happening with him. But the rotation's been solid. The bullpen's been great. And then one of the best offensive teams in baseball, which is pretty wild. Let's pick up with this when we come back. You mentioned Tyler Stevenson. We'll get an update on him. We're going to talk about all that with Charlie Goldsmith coming up at the top of the hour as well. But I'll step away for a few, just a quick timeout. We'll be right back. More Reds talk next. All right, and we are back off the bench. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, and Jacob Tissett with you here. Charlie Goldsmith is going to join us coming up here in just about 12 minutes or so. We'll talk Reds and Bengals coming out of the NFL draft last weekend. Looking forward to chatting with Charlie coming up here in just a bit. The Cincinnati Reds, look, the identity of this team from the very beginning we figured was going to be all about the pitching. We did not think that they did enough to really elevate this team in their offensive production at all. Obviously, defensively improved from one season to the next. The pitching's been great. The bullpen's been solid. But our biggest concern at the beginning of the season was just how good of an offensive unit that this can be. And the fact that, for 3 straight games, your pitching staff held an opponent to 1 run for 3 straight games, but you got shut out for 3 straight games and lost. I think those 3 games have kind of been the label of this team all season. I don't think that this team has been able to shake off that 3-game stretch at all, because you have a lot of non-Reds fans or national media in general that remember that stretch, and that's the lasting memory that they have, or they just chalk the Reds up to that. But if the lasting memory you have of the Reds when they were struggling in early April is that, and then you go back to check in to see who were some of the top offensive teams in baseball, even I was surprised to see where the Reds were falling. Like, I knew that they were improved from the beginning of April, but the fact that as a team hitting 254 in the season, that's the 6th best team average in baseball at this point, and that might have changed slightly from yesterday's game. They've scored 153 runs now on the season. They've scored the 3rd most runs in baseball. How? Now, again, we've talked about some of those games where they've had those just insurgents of runs. You put up 20 runs, that's going to help in that game against the Orioles, of course. But this team right now has put up the 3rd most runs in baseball. The only 2 teams that have put up more runs than the Cincinnati Reds, the New York Yankees, and the Chicago Cubs. So this team can score runs as well, on top of the fact that, of course, their pitching has been phenomenal and lights out. You look at the fact that I don't look at this team as being a big power hitting team, but they're 11th in baseball in home runs. They've hit the 11th most home runs in all of Major League Baseball. Now, to counter that, they've also struck out the 10th most times in Major League Baseball as well. But this team is a very unique offensive group. I don't know how. I think a lot of it is Elly is, by the way, in the midst of a 12-game hitting streak. I think that hasn't been talked about enough. I was very critical of him early on. The guy's been lights out. I mean, he's been phenomenal in this stretch right here. He's doing exactly what you would expect him to do. Love what he's doing. And when you're getting that contribution from Elly, and then you look at Gavin Lux, and you look, obviously, at the guys up and down this lineup since getting Austin Hayes back. I mean, Noelvi Marte has been that's a win for the Reds. That's a big picture win. That's a win for this season, yes, but a win big picture, because the hit rate on some of these prospects that we thought were pretty damn good is starting to kind of dwindle a bit. It's nice to see Noelvi Marte turn that corner in the 13 games, 12 games that he's played in, hitting 364, 3 home runs, 15 plus RBIs. He's been lights out. Obviously, Austin Hayes, a very similar line, 388, 5 home runs, 13 RBIs in that 12, 13 game stretch as well. Are you buying in? Statistically, this is one of the best hitting teams in baseball. Are you buying in that the Cincinnati Reds, Elliot Jacob, are you buying in that this is actually one of the best hitting teams in baseball as we sit here late April?
No, but I do think that I commend them. I commend them for what they've done against the Rockies and the Orioles. I think that this lineup is going to be as good as this, in late July and late September and late August. No, I don't. But I'll say this. Bad teams don't do what the Reds are doing right now. The Chicago White Sox don't score 24 runs in a baseball game. They don't have a plus 50 run differential. So there is something to being as good as they are right now. Like, bad teams aren't I think water's going to find its level. Bad teams don't see even the limited success that the Reds have had during this stretch, right? They don't come close to it. So I think the offense is better than they were in the first few weeks of the season, the first week of the season. But I don't think they're as good as they are right now. I think there's going to be a middle to it. And this is all while, by the way, you mentioned Elly De La Cruz. I'd argue Elly De La Cruz hasn't even come close to how good he's going to be this season. I think he's got a lot more in him. Matt McClain, arguably, maybe the second best player on the team coming into the year, and he hasn't really shown up either. So if we get those 2 guys rocking and rolling, they might be this good. Austin Hayes, do I think he's going to hit 400 the rest of the year? No, but I can't argue with what he's done. Same thing with Gavin Lux. We have 2 catchers right now that are hitting well above what anybody thought was humanly possible. So I'm in a tight spot here, because I don't want to say that the Reds aren't as good as this, but I do kind of want to be in the camp that maybe if everybody plays right, if everybody plays up to their potential, and you have Noelvi Marte coming up, who, by the way, wasn't supposed to be on the team this year, was not supposed to see significant at-bats, significant playing time. Him stepping up into this role changes the equation. It changes what I think this roster is. If he's going to continue to hit remotely close to this, then yeah, I think the offense is somewhat legit. I don't think they're this good, but I still think they're top half of the league. I still think they're going to give the pitching staff a shot because I do think the pitching staff is as good as advertised, as long as everybody's healthy. So we'll see moving forward. But yeah, there was a lot of question marks on CES. CES not here. Injured, battling injuries, and even if he's not battling injuries, I don't know if I can rely on CES to be a key contributor. Noelvi Marte, I said 2 years ago that I thought that he was going to be the guy.
Credit to you.
I thought he was going to be a guy. Then a certain incident happens.
No.
And I had my doubts. He played bad in all levels of baseball for the past year. And he's come up this year and he's shined.
He found new levels of baseball to play bad at.
So, I mean, I'm thrilled right now with what the Reds have done offensively, finding their spark. I just hope it can last.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly optimism to be had with this Reds lineup. I mean, I think what we held on to with Gavin Lux, those that were incredibly optimistic, was an incredible second half last year. And so far through, 30 games, he's matching it. I mean, he's leading the league in average. It's unbelievable. And you said, Elly, Matt McClain's hitting, a $162. And we're talking about the Reds having a top 5 offense in baseball. I know the catching position has been one of the best hitters on the team so far this year. Tyler Stevenson was still our third best bat talking about going into this season, and we don't have him in this lineup right now. So you can say two things at once, and I don't think the Reds are a top 10 offense in this league. I also don't necessarily know that the Reds are playing their best baseball right now, which is kind of crazy to say. So I think water will find its level. I think they are being carried by a couple monster games, and there will be downsides to this season and droughts that are tough to go through that'll bring this team closer to league average. But at this point in this season, I am closer to believing in them to be a top 5, top 10 offense than I am to what we saw in April where they were a bottom 10 offense. Yeah, I certainly think they're closer to that, which is not necessarily somewhere I thought we'd get to before Matt McClain figured it out, before Spencer Steer went, on IR and got healthy, before, I don't know if it'll ever happen, and I don't know that we need it to happen with how Noelvi Marte's playing, but before Jeimer Candelario figures it out. I didn't think the Reds would be able to reach this peak with the way a lot of the players that they rely on in the offense playing right now, and they have. So when everyone else figures it out, and maybe Gavin Lux doesn't hit 350, maybe Austin Hayes doesn't hit 400, but I'm just as confident that Matt McClain's not going to hit 160. So maybe this team is a top 15 offense in baseball, and we know what the pitching rotation is. So then, what is the ceiling for this team?
Yeah, I think when you see the inflated numbers and you see the fact that you have so many guys hitting high 300s into the 400s, and a lot of these guys, you didn't have the expectations for them to be doing that coming into this season. I think that's what has a lot of people excited about what you're seeing, but also a little slightly hesitant to dive in to the deep end. But enjoy it, because it's a lot better than what the hell we were watching at the beginning of the month.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think that 3-game stretch where they lost 3 straight 1-0 games, that was something that they were going to have to work really hard to shake. And if you would have told me at that point that we'd be heading in to close out the month of April where only 2 other teams have scored more runs than the Reds, and a team that got shut out 3 straight games, that we'd be closing out the month of April where only 2 other teams have scored more runs than them, I would have laughed at you. I would have said there's no way in hell that would be the case. Kudos to this group for rallying together and doing what they're supposed to. Obviously, Austin Hayes coming off the IL has been a huge pickup for this team. And then, as you were just talking about right now, Noelvi Marte, just the way he's emerged as a legitimate contributor to go along with the catchers that we've talked about, and that creates an interesting talking point when Tyler Stevenson's ready to come back. And we're going to talk about all of that fun stuff with Charlie Goldsmith coming up here in just a few moments. We're going to talk about the Reds with Charlie to open up. And then, of course, we'll turn our attention towards the Cincinnati Bengals and the work that they did over the weekend in the 2025 NFL Draft. This is Off the Bench. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, and Jacob Tissett with you here on a Tuesday. Let's hang out with Charlie Goldsmith when we come back. All right, off the bench, we are back. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, and Jacob Tissett with you here. Of course, talking a lot of Reds today. We spent a lot of time, and rightfully so, on the Bengals coming out of the NFL draft on yesterday's show, and we'll dive in to more Bengals talk with Charlie coming up here in just a few moments. But Charlie Goldsmith giving us some time as we kick things off. Charlie, first of all, we appreciate you giving us some time. I know things are busy right now and hectic. The Reds are rolling. Obviously, a lot of coverage with the draft with the Bengals, which we'll touch on in a moment. But help us out right now. You're coming in as we're having the debate about the Reds offensively. I mean, they are right there at the top. I mean, whether it's top 5, top 6, top 10 in so many major offensive statistical categories. I know we're wrapping up the month of April, but at this point right now, how much do you buy into just how good of an offensive unit this team is? A team that identity seems to be on the pitching side, but I think that's overshadowing just how good this team's been offensively, which is wild considering how poor they started the month of April.
Yeah, the offense has an identity. It's clearly, hit over power. It's clearly quality at bats and kind of a professionalism, gritty approach as opposed to kind of selling out for the long ball. And they seem to have kind of just settled in. New coaching staff, new hitting staff, a couple new pieces. Everyone's kind of just settled into their roles. Now, is this a top 10 offense? They've got more to prove in that regard. But I think this is a solid offense with solid pieces, with terrific upside, even with Matt McClain and Elly Cruz, who truly haven't gotten rolling yet. And then there's some real depth here as well. So it's definitely exceeded my expectations.
Noelvi Marte has been, I would say, maybe the biggest part of him and Austin Hayes. I guess you could give it to either one of them. Would be the largest part of the Reds' offensive success of the past 5 games. Where did Noelvi Marte find whatever he's found here? He's struggled, in every level of baseball for about a year, and then he comes up this season and it looks like a completely different player. Where did he find this?
And I mean this as a compliment. It's as surprised as I've been by a player in a while. Noelvi Marte was not in consideration to make the team, really. He was called up to ride the bench for 5 days, basically, as Matt McClain had that minor hamstring injury. But then he played that one Saturday, and they liked what they saw, and then he got another call up a bit later, and he's run with it. My favorite story here is it was in Baltimore the day before the crazy, 6-hit or 5-hit, I think he had, 7 RBI game. And he's doing a long batting practice, and behind the cage are Nick Krall, Chris Valleca, assistant coach Mike Napoli, and I'm going to demonstrate this. Noelvi Marte, when he's bad, has a high one-handed follow-through, and he slips off his back foot. When he's staying through the ball, when he's hitting the ball the other way, it's a much lower follow-through, and it's like this. And so what I saw in that batting practice was Mike Napoli pull him aside and explain that to him, and Krall and Valleca were not along. They're like, man, this is good stuff. And Noelvi, he's repeating that. He's trying to get that muscle memory. And then he has this big game in Baltimore, and to kind of celebrate everything that was going on after that grand slam, even though it was against a position player, Mike Napoli is parading around the dugout like this to show, hey, there it is. And he's been on a roll ever since. Sometimes it can be something that simple being such a big difference.
Do you think that it's possible, and again, I don't want to focus on the negatives too much today, but Will Benson's been tearing it up in AAA. Can we see an adjustment from that with Will Benson, who's been absolutely slaughtering down in Louisville? Can he come up and maybe work with Napoli and get some adjustments himself?
He's made some adjustments. There's been a lot of talk about the way he's using his hands, and that kind of showed up here. Where Will Benson is he's kind of the up-down outfielder on this team between AAA and Louisville. We saw that when they called him up the first time. Now, if he got another opportunity, he'd have to take advantage of it, just like Noelvi Marte did. It'd probably take an injury or something for that to happen, but credit to him what he's doing in AAA.
When you look at Jeimer Candelario, I don't want to focus too much on the negatives, but when you look at Jeimer Candelario, do you think there's any bit of life left there, or do you think this is the end, what we're seeing right now, of Jeimer Candelario's time in Cincinnati?
I'm trying to think what the low points of the 2024 Reds were from a depth perspective. I remember one game where Levi Jordan and Santiago Espinal were in the outfield. Depth is the key. So last year, for example, remember the Reds were off to a strong start, and then they had all these injuries. CES, Friedel's already here, but then he came back and got hurt again. There were a couple other guys, and all of a sudden, Edwin Rios was up. You don't remember who that is. Injuries are such a big deal that depth is so significant that Jeimer will get another opportunity. Whether it's, Fraley should be fine, but yesterday was a reminder, that easily could have been Jeimer filling in the lineup after Fraley got scratched with that quad contusion. So Candelario is the most feel-based hitter I've ever been around, and maybe he just gets hot and is in the right state of mind. And I mean, we did see that last year. It definitely is more feel over mechanics with him. They're trying to get his bat speed up, but that's got to happen. Definitely concerning. I mean, they benched him, but I wouldn't give up on him because the Reds' AAA depth is I'm not encouraged by it at all.
Yeah.
So if an injury or two did happen, you do want to have Jamer as a guy who you could call upon.
Spencer Steer is starting to find a little bit that, the batting average slowly starting to climb up. I know they played Colorado. I know they're not playing the best pitching staffs in the world. But do you have confidence that Spencer Steer is going to be able to find probably not who he was last year, but maybe a little bit of it? Probably not the 90 RBI guy that he was, but I don't know, some semblance of who he was the last 2 years.
Yeah, there are guys I'm less confident in. There are guys I'm more confident in. I'm a big Spencer Steer guy, and frankly, most of the Reds clubhouse are big Spencer Steer people. Like I was talking to a veteran last week about kind of the stars of the team, and he just threw in Steer. One of the vets threw in Steer right next to. He said, "Oh yeah, Elly, Hunter, McClain, and Steer." Like he didn't even think twice about it. That is the reputation that Steer has around the league. I think he's tangibly getting more comfortable. I'm buying Spencer Steer stock. He looks a lot better. I give him a long runway to work through whatever he needs to work through because I think he's that good of a player.
The dynamics of the bullpen. I know Alexis Diaz didn't start with the Reds, and maybe he has lost his closer role altogether with Pagan getting his 8th save last night. Do you like the dynamic of where this bullpen is? I know coming into the year there was probably some doubts. Not a ton of names, probably a lot of Reds fans were comfortable with. But now we're a month into the season, and I feel like the Reds have one of the stronger bullpens in baseball.
I absolutely love what we're seeing from the back three. Ashcraft. I mean, what more can you say? I have owned all of the Tony Santian stock since 2021. I have the receipts to back that up, and I'm now, this is my life. Whatever that LeBron James meme is, like I'm now winning on that stock. And then Pagan. I mean, what more can you say about Pagan as well? Now, what I am concerned about is kind of the flip side, the back nine of this bullpen, or the front nine, whatever you want to say, of this bullpen. Look at the games the Reds have lost this season. What you'll probably see is the starter having a short start and then seeing some of those front-end guys have to pitch more than you'd want them to. A guy I'll mention, like, for example, is Taylor Rogers, who they have used situationally against left-handers in games they're trailing. You'd like to see Taylor Rogers being a bit more of a high-leverage role. I'm concerned with Alexis Diaz. Yes, great job getting the 8th inning in Colorado the other day. You need to see a lot more of that because everything else up to this point had been concerning with Alexis Diaz. Jabot's hurt. He was one of their more consistent strike throwers. You love Brent Suter, but his role is what it is. Like, you'd want to see more from the front of the Reds bullpen. Yeah. That is one of my more concerning parts of the roster now. But one of the stories of the season from a front office organizational decision-making standpoint is, at what point do you call up these young guns in AAA, Luis May, Zach Maxwell? He's not quite a young gun, but Joe LaSorsa is awesome. At what point do you call those guys up because they might be better than what you have?
Speaking of the minor leagues right now, Rhett Lauder is a guy that was as impressive as he could possibly be. Unexpectedly came up towards the end of last season, obviously dealing with injuries. Is there an update there with Rhett Lauder? Could we see Rhett Lauder in a Reds uniform anytime soon?
Yeah, Rhett Lauder's throwing bullpens in Arizona, ramping up to a rehab assignment. They've taken it slow. He should start a rehab assignment pretty soon. Nothing has happened there. It's just taking it slow with elbow soreness. He'll be in the mix, and they need it because, again, you talk about depth. Actually, what I'm most concerned about is this team's whole AAA rotation is on the IL, and Wade Miley just suffered a setback. And I like Chase Petty, but he's still just 22 years old with barely any AAA experience. So, like, Randy Winn might be their next up starter, and that's not where the Reds wanted to be. They had 5 guys ahead of Randy Winn for a reason. So that's something I'm monitoring for sure, that overall starting pitching depth.
My last question, Charlie. Kinner asked you about the offense. Do you think they're going to be able to sustain this as a whole, as an entire unit right now, assuming that these guys are going to be healthy and ready to play going forward? Do you still have the vibes, the feelings that the Cincinnati Reds could make some noise, whether it be in the wild card or potentially sneaking up on the Cubs and taking this division? As of right now, if this team plays like this and is healthy, could this team be a playoff team?
I'll say this, they feel a lot older and more mature. Like, that's something that's been stressed and reinforced to me and that I've picked up on as well. Like, you see that with the veterans they brought in. Elly and McLean feel a lot older. There's been a lot made it. You all have seen it. Hunters and Lodolo, too, just look a lot older this year. So that helps. Sure. When you have guys like that, I could definitely see this team fighting in the mix. Now, a lot of guys have to sustain it. A lot of guys have to play better. There are still a million things this team has to prove. But sure, they certainly have kind of the experience, the savvy, and the talent to enter this mix and stay competitive.
Charlie Goldsmith giving us some time today talking Cincinnati Reds. We'll turn our attention to the Bengals coming up here in a moment. One thing we've talked about on the show, Charlie, is the fact that, coming into the season, a lot of Reds fans felt that the offseason was very underwhelming. I mean, you start October off with getting Terry Francona, so it just felt like everything was rolling. You trade Jonathan India away to get Brady Singer, and then it just slowed down. Gavin Lux wasn't a sexy name. Same thing with Austin Hayes, and you look at the new additions that they made. They go and they get Trevino, and again, very good name, or not the biggest name class that they had in the offseason. But it is ironic that for a lot of people who thought that there was a very underwhelming offseason as far as new additions to the team, the thought of where this team would be without those underwhelming additions, that's how great these additions have been. Who has been the most surprising to you? Has it been the way Trevino has stepped up in the absence of course, Tyler Stevenson, who I'll ask you about in a moment? Has it been Gavin Lux, who now is getting everyday opportunities? Austin Hayes, who had a down year because of the kidney infection, but now looks like he's returning, or at least rising above what his all-star level was 2 years ago. Who's been the biggest surprise to you as far as the contributions are concerned for some of the new guys?
Yeah, I expected Austin Hayes to basically be an upgrade over Stuart Fairchild, to be a right-handed platoon guy who would come in, play solid defense, and hopefully mash against lefties. And Austin Hayes being this team's everyday cleanup hitter, and not just that, like, there are real just like tools with him, and you look at Austin Hayes, I don't know that you think tools, but there's just real juice, real power, real twitch in what he brings to the table. And he's a cannon in right field. He's one of the smartest players on this team from a base running, heads up overall smart baseball IQ perspective. So, I mean, I've said this before, my biggest criticism of the Reds front office over the years has been, one, where they have invested their resources from a position player perspective at the major league level in terms of guys they brought in. And two, I've said, like, just find a guy you like and go get him. And that's exactly what they did this offseason. Very targeted acquisitions at positions of need with specific strengths that they really prioritized. And they hit this year, and that goes a long way.
Austin Wynns, Trevino have been fantastic as far as contributions from the catcher position is concerned. Tyler Stevenson, obviously in the middle of a rehab stint right now. How do you see Tyler Stevenson, Trevino? How do you see the catcher position being managed by Terry Francona when he gets back? It's a good problem to have. Thought one of the biggest absences coming into the season was going to be how the Reds fared without Stevenson to start. But not that saying that they're fine without him, but again, that just shows you how much Wynns has stepped up and Trevino has stepped up. How is that going to be managed when he's ready to be called back for the Reds here anytime now, it seems?
So first, let me say this about Austin Wynns. Like, Austin's a guy who I got to know during spring training last year because, like, I show up making sure I'm on time for open locker room in the morning, which starts right when the players start to get there. So I get there before the players do. Wynns was the only one who beat me to the building every day, and we had a lot of He's a lot like Von Bell, and you don't really get to know that side of him because, he's been a third-string, second-string catcher. Just a really smart, intense, serious guy that really makes an impact everywhere he's gone. Now, having three catchers, you can ask 2023 Kirk Casale how unfair, how tough, how much of a struggle that can be for the guy who's the third catcher. They're committed to Tyler Stevenson as their catcher. You've got to catch him now. Will you catch him at the same pace right away coming back from the injury? Probably not. But Trevino's already going to have more of kind of an even split anyway, with Stevenson already supposed to be in the DH role more. So, I don't think it's fair to any of these guys to carry three catchers just because there's not enough playing time for them all to catch. And you kind of ending up not maximizing the roster spot that you have, but Wynns has proven what he's capable of in the big league. Stevenson's this team's catcher. And hey, Trevino is one of the top 25, top 20 catchers in baseball. And hey, Fernando Cruz is pitching great too. That was a really kind of rare win-win trade for both sides, the Reds and the Yankees.
Last thing on the Reds, Charlie, and we'll transition over to the Bengals, but Terry Francona, we're 1 month in to the Terry Francona era here in Cincinnati, and a lot's made about, just how much impact do managers truly have on teams. But you go get a big Hall of Fame name like that, obviously a lot of eyes are going to be on him. From David Bell to Terry Francona, in your time covering this team, we're 1 month in. What's the biggest difference you've seen as far as how this team is managed? I mean, has there been a lot of instances in games where you're like, oh, that's different. That's not how it would have been run with David Bell. Are there some moments throughout this season, 1 month in, where you're like, yeah, this team is obviously Terry Francona's group now?
The biggest is the base running. I mean, this is a complete reversal for their base running identity. It's all about smart, targeted opportunities to run the bases, as opposed to letting the guys run just to run. And that's been a complete 180-degree shift. The way I've said it, too, is like, and again, David did a lot well. I think his time in Cincinnati was overall a success. But previously, I saw a game through the lens of that staff as a bunch of individual moments, you know what I mean? Like, get off your best swing and it'll all string together and kind of, again, a bunch of individual moments. Here I've kept being reinforced, situational, based on what's happened before you, based on what's happened after you, getting down a bunt to set up the next opportunity. It's a lot more looking at the big picture of the game. And again, those are completely, one's more analytical, one's more old school. Those have been kind of the two philosophical shifts that I've seen between these two staffs.
All right, take a quick, brief pause. We'll be right back. Bengals talk, Charlie Goldsmith. Jacob, we'll tag Jacob in.
There we
Jacob,
go.
You awake? Jacob.
I'm here.
There we go. All right, we'll be right back. More Off the Bench next.
Welcome back into Off the Bench here on 1410 Wing AM, joined still by Charlie Goldsmith. Thanks for the time, Charlie. Moving now from the Reds to the Bengals, and obviously a lot of the focus now on the draft and the wrapping up of what we think probably the additions to this Bengals roster for the offseason. This draft specifically in 2025, it felt like most Bengals fans were very honed in and focused that this team was going to take immediate impact players. And while that was the case for the later rounds in the draft, Shamar Stewart, the player they took at 17, seems like a big swing on upside. How much of a surprise was that pick, and how much of a project do you think the organization views him as?
Shamar Stewart will play probably 40 to 60% of the snaps in 2025, and they needed more pass rush, and he'll definitely be better than what they had. So there's a clear path to Shamar Stewart being an impact piece. Now, what I think has been overblown is this pick 17, wasn't traits versus production, because it's not like they were looking at edge rushers who had 14 sacks like Mike Green and Donovan Izaraku, who I don't think were next up on their board. What this was traits versus positional value. So defensive tackle Derek Carmen, safety Malachi Starks, linebacker John Campbell, all less premium positions than a guy who could potentially, they're hoping is the replacement for Trey Hendrickson on the edge starting in 2026. So he'll contribute. It definitely didn't fill their needs. It's definitely a bet on the guys they already had in-house developing. But this was probably going to be the Bengals' last chance to find a Trey Hendrickson replacement, because they don't plan to be picking this high again, and because they won't have the money in free agency to pay for that. So that probably all added up to why Stewart was picked.
Speaking of replacements, following Shamar Stewart, defensive additions for the Bengals went and drafted two linebackers, Demetrius Knight from South Carolina and Barrett Carter from Clemson. I think everyone in Bengals Nation is connecting the dots there. What does that mean for the future of Jermaine Pratt and Al Golden's defense?
Yeah, I mean, read the interviews on Bengals.com, you know what I mean? When they're talking about the room, and this is on Bengals.com, and they're not mentioning Jermaine. It's a big bet on Demetrius Knight. This is the Bengals team that hasn't drafted a guy on either side of the ball to start since Jamar Chase. And, Cordell Volson was a week one starter, but Jackson Carman was supposed to be the starter. Going back, and this is just off the top of my head, I'm just going back. Jesse Bates started right away in 2018, but he wasn't drafted to start. They ended up cutting, I believe, Reggie Nelson that year after Bates beat him out at camp. I'd have to go back farther. The last time the Bengals drafted someone to start, let alone on day two, not day one, on the defensive side of the ball. So it's a shift. It's a bet. He's 25. He's experienced. He's about all the right stuff. He's a smart guy, so that should help. But the Bengals will have to do something they haven't in years and be able to find an immediate defensive contributor.
Dan Pitcher, after the third-round pick of Dylan Fairchild, the guard from Georgia, mentioned that he will have an opportunity to start at guard this year. Do you expect the same for fifth-round pick Jalen Rivers from Miami to have a chance to start at guard? And could the Bengals realistically roll out 2 rookie guards on week 1 this year?
He could get thrown in there. I'm betting more that he starts out as the swing tackle because that flexibility lets Cody Ford get basically all of his snaps at right guard this offseason. I would still tab Cody as the favorite because he did show something last. Like, he's not a flashy player, but there's tape, there's experience, there's scheme continuity with Cody Ford. They know exactly what that looks like, and he was fine at guard. He's been fine at guard whenever he's gotten that opportunity. Now, what was it? It was 2021, you don't remember this, but Deontay Smith ended up entering the guard competition as a rookie right away, and he lost, but there were a bunch of injuries, and they had to cobble things together in camp, and there's Deontay Smith with the first team, and now he didn't take advantage of that opportunity. But if the right combination of injuries and circumstance happens and Rivers ends up with the first team and he looks good, we've seen much crazier things on the Bengals offensive line during training camp. So certainly could be a possibility, but I do think he'll probably start out behind Ford, behind Fairchild, behind Patrick. And honestly, I'd put him behind Volson as well, even though Volson's contractual status is its own thing.
Moving on to other contractual statuses, Zach Moss's contract was reworked earlier last week, and I think that made a lot of fans think running back was probably off the table for the draft with the addition of Samaje Perine earlier in this free agency as well. Obviously not the case, as the Bengals draft Taj Brooks out of Texas Tech, an uber-productive running back in the 6th round. What role will Taj Brooks play early in this season with those 3 more established backs that the Bengals are familiar with?
I'll start here. I don't expect them to carry 4 on the active game day roster. I think they'll carry all 4 on the 53, but when inactives come about, usually you'll just have 3. So that'll kind of be a fun training camp battle. Zach Moss, I think, was one of the 32 best running backs in the NFL last year before he got hurt. That's fine. There's an efficiency, an ability to hit singles, an ability to get the 4 yards and keep you on schedule, plus some ability in pass protection as well. You'd like to see him be better on checkdowns. Perine, great check down guy, great pass pro guy. We know exactly what he is. Brooks is probably the 2nd best ball carrier in the room and probably has the highest upside on kick returns. Special teams could be a factor here that would weigh in Brooks' favor because he does have more special teams ability. So let's see how these guys look in camp. But Brooks, they felt in the deepest running back class we've seen in a long time, was too good of a value to pass up, even though they did have much bigger needs on the roster, including one we haven't talked much about, they could have used a wide receiver in round 6, but the value with Brooks was too high to pass on.
Some of those positions that we expected the Bengals to draft and they did not, they tried to address maybe in undrafted free agency, bringing in multiple wide receivers like you just said, but most notably Seth McLaughlin, the center from Ohio State, and Howard Cross, the defensive lineman from Notre Dame. Those 2 names are 2 that I've seen Bengals fans thrown out a lot about potentially making this roster. Do you expect any of these undrafted free agents to make this 53-man roster? And with McLaughlin specifically, has there been any update on his injury and when he will be ready to return?
I don't have an update on that injury. We'll probably get that at rookie minicamp when all these guys come in. Looking at defensive tackle, I'll tell you how this is going to go. They're going to be in the mix. They're going to want to carry 5. They'll prefer to carry 5. If it turns out, Cross and Gregory can't play, then they could, keep Ced Johnson on the roster and go 6 and 4. But here's what's going to happen. I'm telling you, they're going to be looking at the waiver wire just like they were in 2022 on the final day of camp. And if J. Tufele 2.0 is out there, I know nobody, I know there are some Drew Sample stands on this show. I don't know that there were any J. Tufele stands on this show, but he was a fine 53rd man on the roster. If you can find someone like that on waiver wire day, that's what it's for, and that's how the Bengals have used it, to find the guy on the rookie contract who got cut at the spot you weren't able to or didn't end up addressing in the draft. The Bengals have done this at tight end before, Devin Asiasi. They've done it at guard before with Max Sharp. I actually think all 3 of those guys were the same day. So keep an eye out on the waiver wire defensive tackle. If not, or if Cross or Gregory flashes and has a great preseason, which they'd need to, sure, there's a path for that.
Another position people expected the Bengals to attack in the draft that we left without an addition at was safety, that defensive back room. Justin Simmons has been public about saying he would be interested in playing for the Bengals, playing for Cincinnati. Do you think there's any chance that the Bengals take a swing at one of those higher-level free agents still available, like a Dalton Risner at guard or Simmons at free safety after the draft now?
I know that they were looking at safeties in this draft, and there were certainly scenarios that ended up with the Bengals drafting a safety in this draft. Honestly, when you look at depth, you make the case that free safety depth is the biggest question. And Dejon Anthony is great, or was before, he kind of got in his own way there were just some missed assignments we all saw. But Dejon Anthony has real tools to be a sub-package cover guy, not much of a free safety. That's just not how I've seen him be used successfully going back to training camp. Tyson Anderson profiles even more of an in the box if he does play the field, but really a true special teamer. So they don't have a backup free safety. Geno Stone, I'm going to move my head around as I kind of insinuate, didn't have a good year.
Right.
I'd be interested in adding a starting free safety. Will the Bengals? Frankly, I just don't know. I would use the Jermaine Pratt money on free safety, either depth or starting in Justin Simmons, but I don't know what they're going to do.
Charlie, last thing on the way out, off-season started out loud. Thought some of the off-season drama would have kind of bled in further into the calendar year. That's not the case now that the draft is done, and once some of the draft reaction kind of dies down a bit. I know, schedule release coming out here shortly as well, but do you anticipate, I know for you and us, we need content. Content's always a good thing, but it might be a pretty quiet Bengals summer, correct? I mean, do you anticipate a quiet Bengals summer leading into camp? Is there any landmines out there potentially that we're not considering at this moment?
I anticipate a quiet Bengals summer because I don't expect an update on Trey Hendrickson until training camp. That's just my read, my gut instinct on the situation. Looking at the rest of the roster, the extension candidates would be from the 2022 class, where I guess the Dax Hill fifth-year option will be the big one, and that'll be in the next couple of days. But Cam isn't in a spot to sign an extension. I think he'd rather bet on himself and try to put last season behind him. Guys who get benched typically don't end up signing extensions when they believe they can be pretty close to the top of their position. Who else was in that 2022 class? I guess that would be Zach Carter. Obviously, he's gone. Cordell Volson, you thought would be in line for an extension. Obviously, that doesn't seem to be the case as he competes for a starting role now. So it is lined up to be pretty quiet.
All right, Charlie Goldsmith, big fan favorite here on the show. Charlie, tell everyone where they could find your work. I know you're dabbling in a lot of different working areas right now. Where can people find your work now?
Well, first, I just want to say I appreciate you guys. I'd like to apologize for my runny nose that I've dealt with this morning. If you see me using a tissue on me, I'd like to apologize for that. Check out charlieschalkboard.substack.com. Breakdowns, analysis, breaking news reporting, all that fun stuff. It's a lot of fun. We just got our 2,000th subscriber this morning. How about that?
There we go.
So, Charlie's Chalkboard.
All right, good stuff. Charlie, you the man. We always appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good stuff. Again, I don't even know what time we got. We have a few more minutes.
That was pretty good. That might have been one of our more time-conscious and on-the-nose interviews.
Yeah, we were ready to roll. We were ready to roll there.
I mean, we had no choice.
And by the way, Charlie does not have to apologize for
we should apologize to Charlie after every interview.
I sneezed directly into the microphone, like multiple occasions. I've sneezed I turned to the microphone and I sneezed in it.
You unpacked a sandwich mid-show like 3 weeks ago.
I did.
Right into
I did.
Yeah, that was fun.
During one of Tom's shows, I sat over here while they were doing their thing, and I didn't know the mic was on, so I literally had the sandwich from Subway, unwrapped it into the microphone.
Did you have chips too?
Oh, you might as well.
I learned once Jacob looked over at me, I was like, oh boy.
What a time to be alive.
That was good.
I made the mistake of diving into the chat a little bit ago. Yes, I'm very well aware that I do ask long questions. It is something to work on, and I will work on it. I'm not opposed to
I'm the same way. They get on me for that too. Don't worry about it.
So, but half the time I'm not confident in my own questions, so I'm trying to explain it to myself to make sure it makes sense.
Yeah.
But, no, I get why people say that. I love Colin. I think Colin Cowherd does a great job, but Colin does that too. Colin, and I'm not saying it's okay because Colin did, but as a fan, I sit back and I'm like, geez, Colin, just spit it out, get to it. And then I find myself doing the same thing. So, no, I'm not. They're right. I'll work on, cutting that back a bit. Dan Patrick's the best at those questions, though. He asks,
he's
one
top
sentence.
2 or 3 interviewer out there. Yeah, I love his interviews.
But Dan's very good at the most basic, boring question, but he gets the job done.
Dan Patrick and SVP are the two that take the cake for me in terms of interviews. A little bit different of a sense. Obviously, SVP is, right after the games, usually live, but I think he has completely mastered that sense of, getting a reaction out of those players and coercing questions. Dan Patrick's certainly the same way.
But, yeah, not opposed to criticism, so all good. But question, anything stand out from any of his takeaways as far as the Bengals? Like, I asked him about the offseason mainly because, like, I did expect some of that stuff to bleed in a lot further than what it did.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that they got Jamar and T done so quickly. Did that get done in the timeline that you guys thought?
Yes.
Or did you think it would bleed further into the offseason?
If anything, quite honestly, I thought it happened later than I thought it would have with Jamar and T. Now, I would have expected a Trey Hendrickson resolution, whether that's moving him or an extension or a 1-year raise. I didn't expect that to take this long. And Charlie just said that'll go till training camp, which is kind of what we've resigned ourselves to for the last month or so now, which I do think is a shock. If you would have asked me in the last week of the regular season which one gets taken care of the quickest, I probably would have said Trey. But I still think Jamar and T probably happened a little later than a lot of us expected, just because it was such a no-brainer decision, and we kind of put that arbitrary deadline of the start of free agency, and we didn't even get that. So I think even the most pessimistic fans thought if Jamar and T did get done, they'd get done earlier. I think when they happened, it's a surprise that both got done, in all honesty, with how late it happened. But the biggest takeaway I had from that interview with Charlie was he didn't shoot down adding a starting free agent after the draft.
And Simmons?
Or Dalton Risner. I mean, he said he would go out and spend this money on a starting free agent. How often have we been sitting here in April and the Bengals are looking at starters?
Now, he did throw in there that with Pratt's money,
correct,
he would add. So the first domino has got to be Pratt.
I mean, what are we
It's
waiting for?
Yeah, I don't know what we're waiting for. I mean, it's quite obvious that we're not going to have him on the roster next season. So I don't know. I don't know what the deal is. I mean, I would get it done as soon as you can. I mean, no one's trading any picks probably at this point.
At this point, I'd like a 6th-round pick in 2026. I don't even know if like the extra 3 days it would take to work that out is worth it versus just cutting him.
Yeah.
Why is he? I mean, I don't know if he's in the locker room. I would assume he's not. But why is he on the team? We don't need him. We drafted 2 linebackers. Yeah. Get rid of him.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't get it. That's a head scratcher.
Do good by him to get a new spot, and do good by yourselves to put you in position.
Also, a do good by him would be to cut him like 2 weeks ago, right? So he could find a destination as quickly as possible. So if the Bengals don't want to trade him in terms of you've done so much for the franchise, thank you, we're not going to dump you for a 7th-round pick. I get that. That's fine. Do it now, right? I don't know. I just can't even wrap my head around what they could possibly be waiting for.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe public perception of you cutting the guy that helped you win your first playoff game and being vital to that team.
Is that why they forced Hubbard to retire?
Yeah, like I think maybe there's some sort of like stare down happening. Like, we're gonna cut you unless you take a pay cut or something along those lines.
They did that with Mixon, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that might be going on right now, possibly.
They also didn't draft 2 running backs in the top 5 rounds before they asked Mixon to take a pay cut.
Yeah,
I feel like they made that decision by using draft capital in a year that you have to have starters on 2 linebackers, you know?
Right. That's a good question. I don't know what the right answer to it is.
Really, the question is, why the heck did we sign Orton Burrs?
Yeah, he replaced Joe Bacci.
Special teamer, yeah.
That's literally it. But we were told that it was because he has some major upside as a starting linebacker that played really well in the playoffs. I don't know.
We'll see.
Man. We'll see.
We'll see.
The Simmons thing, you know, as a former Browns fan, if I was still a Browns fan today, and the Bengals get Simmons, as Browns fan, Kenner would not like that.
No, I don't think a lot of
Shador
fans
doesn't need any help throwing the ball to the other team. So
that's true.
I'm just throwing that out there. But no, he was a little bit more receptive to that than I thought. I thought he would shut that down.
I thought so too.
The Bengals aren't going to go swim in that water. But he didn't seem to think that was that crazy.
I wanted to ask because it's certainly my biggest hope I would rather have Justin Simmons signed for this season than have a 3-year trade extension done. Like, I think having Justin Simmons on this team this year changes everything about this defense. You move Geno Stone to that depth role as the third safety when he played in Baltimore. He could just run sideline to sideline and pick off passes and not really have a job to do. And you have Jordan Battle and Justin Simmons to cover. And this defense could be really fun.
Yeah, and then there's a couple of different names. Even if it's not Justin Simmons, like Julian Blackmon's still out there, Asante Samuel Jr. Like
Julian Blackmon's someone you had the Bengals signing in your first mock offseason. I mean, obviously not this late, but right in the thick of it.
Yeah, and that was going to be one of our bigger extensions. I don't know why he's still out there. It must be some injury that he's still recovering from. Regardless, the opposite side of that I took away from it is that he said Cordell was going to be competing for a starting role to maybe get an extension. So probably not getting that cut.
Correct.
So that's only like $3 million extra. So I mean, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But
I do wonder what the conversation is around Cordell Volson if he doesn't win that job, right? If he's not your starting guard and he's not your backup guard. I understand that's a significant fall for him to make down the depth chart now, but that's just Jalen Rivers, Lucas Patrick, and Dylan Fairchild being what we expect them to be. If he's your fourth lineman, how do you justify paying him $3.5 million? I think that makes it a cut then. Maybe he's competing for a roster spot to justify the money.
Or hear me out, maybe the Giants with all their defensive linemen, maybe they want another Billy Price. Come on down.
We run back the BJ Hill trade, but this time for Abdul Carter?
Yeah, or Kayvon Thibodeau, or whoever
Yeah.
you want. I like that. I think that's a great idea for Volson.
But yeah, like this Bengals offseason, the content for you, for
been
Chatterbox Bengals. I don't
been
know how
fun.
much more. I mean, the schedule release coming up. People at the time, like, I love the schedule release. I
Me
love when
too,
that stuff
man.
comes out. Some people, like Kev, we got into the debate on the show yesterday. He doesn't care about that. He goes, you know who you play, but half the time, last year we're chalking up Washington for the Bengals to be an easier game. Like, even Washington felt like a bad loss when it happened. Like, oh, we lost to Washington. I said we. We lost to Washington, It wasn't a terrible, I mean, it was a painful loss. You don't want to lose that type of game, but, like, Washington's a good football team. They're in the NFC Championship game last year. That wasn't as bad a loss at the tail end of the year as what it felt like early on, where it really just made you feel like, man, we're not a good football team. We can't even beat Washington with a rookie quarterback. But at this point, I think for Cincinnati, I do not think it matters who you play and when you play and where you play. I'm a big believer that is the case. You look at the Steelers last year, their final 8 games of the season, they had to play everyone in the division plus the Chiefs, and I think the Chargers or someone else that was crazy in that stretch. That matters. That impacts your season, and I think it did impact their season. But we've learned with Cincinnati, whether they play tough games early on or bad teams, that schedule last year opened up to where you should have been no worse than 4-2.
Correct.
And that was not the case. So although I'm a big fan of kind of seeing out how the schedule is going to lay out, when you play teams, where you play teams. I think with Cincinnati, we've learned none of that matters because it doesn't matter the opponents for the Bengals in September. It matters which Bengals team shows up in the month of September. And I think this boring, quiet, dull offseason is probably just what the doctor ordered as far as that goes. Because last year, you still had the T. Higgins stuff sprinkled throughout the summer. Trey Hendrickson sprinkled throughout the summer. I know that they kind of put a bow on that when you got into June, and then camp was a month later, and then that's when the Jamar thing obviously opened up, and you still had Joe kind of still healing from the previous season's injury. Right now, I don't even think Trey Hendrickson's a distraction. I think we're so numb to that. I think the team's numb to it. I think it'd be a bit major loss if he's not out there, don't get me wrong. But I feel like right now everything has been tied up. All the I's have been dotted, T's have been crossed. This should be a fairly simple offseason to just put this team in position to not make major headlines and to make headlines come September when they finally get off to a hot start, you hope.
Yeah, and what was the last thing non-player related hanging over the Bengals and Bengals fans' heads this offseason? It was the potential relocation and the move and everything with Paycor Stadium.
We get an update today, right?
We got an update just now.
Oh,
Hamilton
is that what
County
we're doing?
Commissioners,
Were you segueing into
absolutely.
that?
Hamilton
Nice
County
job.
Commissioners vote 2-1 to approve a memorandum of understanding to make $184 million in improvements to Paycor Stadium. So the Cincinnati Bengals will be staying put in downtown Cincinnati, right there where they've played for the last however many years. Construction is scheduled to begin in February. So that is certainly great news for Bengals fans. It was always something in the back of our mind that we could potentially lose the Bengals, and that's never something that's fun to think about when you're a fan of a team. So to get that taken care of and on the right track to upgrade Paycor and get it to the level that a championship team should be playing in. It's fine when you're Andy Dalton and you're going 10-7, 9-8, and you're losing in the first round to play in Paycor Stadium. But you need some renovations when you got Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and you're trying to win Super Bowls. So long overdue. That concourse needs a lot of work, and it'll be certainly fun to see a new environment for the Bengals to play in.
Yeah. I couldn't handle another one of my teams being relocated. I don't think this old 35-year-old heart could take it. So I'm so glad. They said renovations start in February. Or when did they say those
February.
start?
It said construction should start in February.
Renovations to like the full model. So when they put out the renderings of that a month or 2 months ago, whenever that was, like that's what they're starting right off the bat.
Probably.
Yeah. I mean, they had to wait to make sure that after the Super Bowl in February that they didn't have to like redo the murals and stuff of them holding up their Lombardi trophy. So,
That's true.
Yeah, I like that. Gotta wait.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for us on radio. Reds make it 6 straight tonight?
Yeah.
I think they will. Yeah. They don't lose on Brady Singer Day.
No, they don't. They score 1 billion runs.
They do.
All right. Well, good stuff. That wraps it up for us on radio. We'll carry on here on the stream. Give the stream a like. Give it the old thumbs up. Please, please, please. We beg you. So give that the old thumbs up and the like on the way out or before you head out, because we still got another 20 minutes, so we'll be hanging out with you. So we'll be right back on the stream side, but that wraps it up for us on radio. Until tomorrow, this has been Off the Bench, Chatterbox Sports and 1410 ESPN Radio. President Trump. The Donald.
Fight.
It's not that kind of party.
Oh, okay.
However, I wasn't just saying his name to say his name, but apparently he had a very important meeting with Rob Manfred recently. The Associated Press and ESPN just put out an article that baseball commissioner Rob Manfred said that he discussed Pete Rose with President Trump in a meeting 2 weeks ago, and that he plans to rule on a request to end the sport's permanent ban on the career hits leader who passed away this past September. I know there were rumblings of that a while back. It kind of died down. I kind of forgot about it a little bit, but when it's all said and done, obviously getting pressure from the old commander-in-chief and everyone else. A lot of people believe that baseball was going to make this decision. Unfortunately, when that time came for Pete Rose to pass, do you feel like it gets done? Is this ban going to be lifted for the Hit King?
I don't think it has the same effect. I mean, we've been asking for him to be in the Hall of Fame for decades and decades in this city, and if he gets in now, great, and that's awesome. I'm sure his family will love the honor, and certainly you can't tell a story of baseball without Pete Rose, which is something we've said in this city for a long time. He has the most hits of anyone to ever play the sport, and he's not in the Hall of Fame. It's comical, but at this point, he's dead. He doesn't get his moment. He doesn't get to see his plaque. He doesn't get to be enshrined. He doesn't get to give his speech. I think that's part of it. I think that's what we do with these guys. We talk about it every year with the Bengals. The priority for the Ring of Honor as we play catch-up is to get the guys in so that they see it while they're still here. Now, I know that's the lifetime ban and everything along those lines. Everyone, now Pete has the chance and he should get what he deserves. And I understand that argument as well, but I think it's very important that we don't give the MLB any kind of round of applause for putting Pete Rose in after he's gone. And if his family doesn't see a need for, that day and that moment, then I don't know that I need to see him in now. I think they missed that wave to, where it means so much to the city, to the team, to Pete Rose, to his family. You had your opportunity when he was alive, and you tried to stick it to him for as long as you possibly could, and now he's gone, and you don't get the chance to put one of the best, players in baseball history in the Hall of Fame, and I think you lost that.
I think baseball is going to try to avoid any controversy, whenever it can. And I don't think that them putting Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame the same year, within the year that Pete dies, all that's going to do is make everybody upset because it's the final punishment of however long it's been. Just and Pete said it as much in interviews that he thought that it was going to happen this way, that he would pass away and baseball would then let him in, so he couldn't see it. I don't think they would. I think it's over. I think any hope for it would have happened by now. I think Manfred's on the same wave as everybody else, and until there's a new commissioner, I would say there would be no shot that Pete Rose gets into the Hall of Fame. I don't see a world where it happens, and I just think it's all it would do is make headlines. Pete Rose being not allowed in the Hall of Fame yet again. That's not really a headline. It's just what's been going on.
Right.
There's no reason there's no reason for Manfred to put him in at this very moment. They didn't do it for this long. We all know how they feel. It would almost be hypocritical at this point. It would make them look horrible, allowing him in at this very second.
It doesn't feel like it would be them saying, here you go, you're in the Hall of Fame now. It really does feel like another jab.
Yeah,
like to do it.
And I'm not the biggest Pete Rose guy, but I mean, when you talk about what a player does for a sport, what he did for the Cincinnati Reds, those accolades are worthy of being in the Hall of Fame. And I know people say that some of those accolades are some of the stolen bases or whatever, the hits and the balls that he hit are in there. There's pieces of that in the Hall of Fame, but it's not the whole story, and we all know that. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me that this year where the Reds are gonna honor Pete Rose on what is that May 12th game or May 14th game?
14th, yeah.
It's just a horrible look. So I don't think Pete's getting in. I don't think, at least for me, I don't think it's been whether or not that I care whether he's in, because we all know that Pete Rose is well deserving of the Hall of Fame. His accolades in baseball are better than a whole lot of other players. There was a controversy. I don't think he handled that controversy with grace, and it cost him. It cost him the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and so for everything that Jacob said is why I do think they possibly will do it, because they were not going to give him that satisfaction of allowing him in when he was alive. Now, they call it a lifetime ban.
Right.
Not making fun of the play on this, but like the lifetime ban has technically been met.
Right.
His life is over, right? So would the ban be over? Big picture would be cool to tie it into Pete Rose Day at Great American Ballpark, but that's just way too soon, so nothing's going to be decided on that. You have to be voted in on top of that. So lifting the ban doesn't necessarily mean that you're in, right? Like, it just means now there's further action that can be taken on the Hit King's future as far as when it comes to the Hall of Fame. What's a worse look for baseball? That you're going to get bad PR no matter what. You let him in, post-mortem, now it just seems like it was deliberately done and it was personal. Baseball looks bad for that. And if you don't put him in, then you start questioning, well, why? What's the point of sticking to this? It's a lifetime ban. His life is over. Why are we sticking it to? Which is a worse look for baseball, not letting him in or letting him in post-mortem? I don't know.
I guess my point at this point is I couldn't care less if he gets in now that he's dead. Like, the whole point of it was that, at least once we passed the baseball part of the conversation, has been that, like, we want the MLB to admit that they were wrong and that he deserves to be in. And when he's up there giving his speech with his plaque, it's, kind of the city of Cincinnati and Reds fans get that moment of seeing it, of they were wrong and we were right, and he's in and he's given the speech, and we don't get that. So, I'm not trying to take anything away from his family, obviously. If they want to go and his son wants to give the speech or his daughter wants to go up there and say something about it, absolutely. Go for it. It's your family's legacy, and he belongs in the Hall of Fame. He's a Hall of Fame baseball player. But I also think, that it's the MLB taking a shot at Pete Rose one last time, the last thing they can do to put him in, if they put him in here right now. And if they put him in 5 years, it's the same thing. They just waited to try to get a little heat off their back. And I think that's really what the main takeaway for me at this point is you're not doing it for Pete Rose. And when you get any player in any sport gets inducted in the Hall of Fame, it should be for them and their family. And at this point, it would be for the MLB trying to cover their own tracks.
Bill Belichick.
Yeah?
This article, TMZ.
What a wild story.
Yeah, so TMZ reports that at one point, so Bill Belichick is doing this interview with CBS, and TMZ reports that at one point, Jordan Hudson, again, the much younger girlfriend of Bill Belichick, she stormed out of the room and delayed shooting for over 30 minutes. Per the report, there were numerous other instances of Hudson interrupting Belichick beyond the one specific interjection that made the final cut. She reportedly would stop and correct him even when he was answering questions about football. She was correcting him on football. This arguably is the greatest.
She's a North Carolina football coach.
I mean,
it's a Power 5 program.
Absolutely. TMZ also reports that CBS producers were surprised that Belichick arrived for the interview accompanied only by Hudson. There was no one from his publisher, the University of North Carolina, or any other representative present. Of course, he has a new book out, and that's what this was supposed to, promote the book. And now nobody's talking about the book, or maybe this is the ultimate promotion of the book. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
Everyone is talking about this. this whole situation, we thought it was just okay, funny, goofy. Oh, Bill Belichick with a significantly younger girlfriend, but now she's girlfriend / assistant coach / GM / publicist / manager / what? What is this? Is one of the weirdest stories in sports right now.
Yeah. Also, not to mention that her last tweet was January 28th, 2024, and until today, when she's retweeted about 10 to 12 supporters in the replies to the CBS tweet.
Really?
Oh yeah. Everyone's. I see. This is from the Texan Nightmare on X.com. I see a woman who cares about her man and doesn't want to be screwed around by the media. Retweeted by Jordan Hudson. Nothing awkward about this from Mikey Romero. Imagine a private person wanting to keep their private life private. Shocking. Retweeted by Jordan Hudson. So clearly there's something that is wanting to be hid here, which is pretty funny. Also funny that she's tweeted multiple times, posted on Instagram multiple times that they met on a plane.
Yeah.
Feel like that's a story you can tell.
Yeah, I thought so, but I guess not. I mean, I think the 50-year age gap probably would have been something you wanted to hide, but
Yeah.
guess you can't hide it all.
Bill also has no idea he's on social media.
Nope, none, zero.
Mr. CBS showed him that picture of him in the fisherman's suit, the all yellow, with her as the
Really?
mermaid, and he was floored that someone else has seen that picture.
Really?
Much less 15 million people on Twitter every single day for the last 3 months.
Yeah, it's
like
tough.
there was. I don't know what's going on there, but it certainly seems like someone's in charge of his socials.
I listen.
And security.
I don't have too much to weigh on this subject. I think everybody in here knows how I feel about it. But it is strange that they would even allow that interview to be done with as much controversy as there is around him right now. It seems very strange to me.
Oh, this whole thing is strange, especially. It's very, very different, but with all the attention that Shannon Sharp's getting to for the criticisms of him being involved with women that are 30, 40 years younger than him, and obviously a much different case. I'm not comparing it, but I'm comparing the age gap, comparison there. But it just seems nothing good happens when you're 50, 60, 70, 80, and you're dating someone in their 20s.
How old's Bill Belichick?
70.
Is he 80 yet?
No, 70-something.
Let's find out.
Who's older, Bill Belichick or Pete Carroll?
Ooh.
Wow, that's a great question. I'm gonna go Pete. Go Pete.
I've got the age right here for Bill Belichick.
Okay.
Wow, this is interesting.
How close is it?
Very.
Is it?
Yeah. What's the date for Bill? What's his birthday?
You want just the
No
date?
year.
No year.
No year. April 16th.
What's Pete?
Pete Carroll is September 15th.
Who do you think's older?
I'm going Pete.
So who do you think looks older?
Bill looks way older.
I don't know, dude. That barrel chest is not playing any games.
That's what's wild about this. I saw an interview with Pete Carroll the other day. Thought he looked pretty good.
Yeah.
For a guy in his 70s. Bill Belichick is also a guy that I think looks good for a guy that looks like he's in his 80s.
Yeah.
He's in his 70s.
I think Pete Carroll looks good for a guy in his 50s.
I agree. I think Pete Carroll looks young.
Like Pete Carroll's a little whippersnap.
He is.
In
It's the gum.
Yeah, the Las Vegas Raiders quarterback room, all the quarterbacks have pairs, and then one of the equipment managers throws with Pete Carroll. Because he warms up before practice.
I love that.
So what's crazy about Pete Carroll is he's not changed a lick since the USC.
Yeah,
days.
when he was cheating out of his butt at USC,
Allegedly.
No, that's not alleged. That was
it?
completely proven.
Is that proven?
Yeah, and he just left to go to the Seahawks, and no one talks about it. Yeah, no, he was paying everybody in the early 2000s. It was unbelievable. How else do you think you get Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush and all those guys? I mean, they were unbelievable. But yeah, that's he's one that gets to skate under the radar for being a big old cheater. He just jumped to the Seahawks, won a Super Bowl, and everyone was like, "Oh, that's cool." USC had a 5-year ban.
The fact that they are both 73 years old is wild.
Yeah, it is wild.
Same age.
That is wild.
Pete Carroll was born September 15th, 1951, and our man Bill Belichick was April 16th, 1952. So Pete Carroll was older by almost a year.
I stand corrected.
Yeah, well, who would you rather have coaching the Bengals? Zach Taylor or one of those two?
I'll say Zach Taylor.
I would too.
I'm a Pete Carroll guy.
You could convince me Pete Carroll.
Yeah, me too. But
I'm a Pete Carroll guy.
I would still lean Zach Taylor. Belichick distant third.
I think Zach Taylor puts together a mean pizza party.
I mean, none of these guys.
I don't know if Bill and Pete can do that.
No.
I think Pete with Joe Burrow. I would trust Pete over Zach at this point.
Yeah, and then with our defense, 72-year-old Pete Carroll has a heart attack on the sidelines. So I mean, he's trying to call an offense. They score 45 points a game and lose.
But you got Al Golden.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
You know what, though? Pete Carroll will always have a piece of gum for you.
That's true.
There's something to be said with guys that can always have gum for you.
I'd take Belichick without the girlfriend.
See, I would only take Belichick with the girlfriend.
That's
Really?
a valid point.
I actually would take Jordan
Wow.
as the head coach of the Bengals.
Head coach?
Yeah.
Maybe she could be the Bearcats GM.
I promise we'd never see that Mike card again posted on social media. You get that figured out.
Anyways, anything else to close out?
I was trying to see. It looks like UCF is very upset.
Why are they upset?
Because you stole their coaches and their best player?
Yeah, it looked. I mean, this is per a source, or I guess I don't even know if it's a source or a fan, or I don't know what's going on. But it looks like that the player that we got from them and that assistant coach were basically trying to get onto a different team like halfway through last season. And UC happens to be the beneficiary of it, so I'm happy for it. No problem on my end.
Look, with guys like that, you're just glad they end up at a program that's buttoned up with sustained success. That's
Yeah,
going
the
to have
Bearcats.
no problems
You're
this
right.
year.
You're right.
They're not going to try to force themselves out.
That's right. The Cincinnati Bearcats basketball program's all the way back. Wes Miller is a great leader. He's done an admirable job so far during his tenure here. He's almost made the tournament. What, 2 out of the 4 years?
Maybe.
So, I mean, I think we're right there.
Have we figured out yet if your GM can fire your head coach?
Don't know. I think he works for the head coach.
Yeah, right. I think Sean's
is
actually in charge.
Which is a strange dynamic, isn't it?
Yeah, no.
The overseer of the basketball program.
Once you think about it, who can fire Sean Miller
Wes
Miller?
I don't
Sean
know.
just fires himself.
I don't know. Sean wants to go to Texas.
Packs it up, goes to
maybe,
Texas.
Maybe Wes joins him in Texas. I don't know. Who knows? There's a lot of mysteries
Co-head
going
coaches.
on. Yeah, that would be cool.
You know what? I mean, it's the same thing to say about quarterbacks.
Miller.
If you don't got 2, you got none.
Yeah, that's right. The Millers. Could you imagine the Millers going horns
Miller
up?
Lite
in
sponsorship,
Texas?
Miller High Life sponsorship.
Oh, it would go great.
You see going horns up.
Horns up.
All right, Casey, anything to close out?
No, I got nothing. Got nothing to say. It was a good show today. Good show today, guys.
Jey Uso, Logan Paul. Who's the Yeet champion? Who's going to win that?
Logan Paul by a mile.
By a mile, he
Give
says.
the people one more yeet to end the show.
No.
Would you say that shirt's mint green or more of a slate?
I would say slate because the green screen's not being picked up at all.
I know. But
Yeah, like
it looks bluer with the blue backdrop, but when I'm looking at him with the actual green behind him, it looks more green.
I see like a mint julep.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
I don't know. I've
I
been
think it's more-
trying to put my finger on a hex code for that color all show, and I just can't nail it.
Yeah, I think it's more of a blue.
All right.
So not mint green.
We'll go with slate then.
There's no green tint at all because the green screen is
Yeah.
not
No, you're
being
right.
swayed at all.
You're right.
So, all right. All right, good stuff, dudes. We'll do it again tomorrow. Till tomorrow, off the bench, Chatterbox Sports, YouTube.